it's not possible to replicate. It's hard to scale. And so we're growing every year. We've got the same issue that, like I said, Vocus, Aussie Broadband. I'm thinking maybe some New Zealand examples here would be, Cordia's probably got the same challenge as they get bigger. Yeah. There'd be other examples that escape my jet-lagged head right now. But I think as you scale, then the trick to ensure that your account management team can keep giving the kind of experience that differentiates your brand would be giving your sales team support. So support type roles coming in that say, look, you shouldn't be doing the basic, admin stuff, creating contracts, that kind of thing. There should be people to help you, but also if you have to do it regularly, it should be automated. So there's that. And then also giving your end users access to the tools that make it much easier for your salespeople to point people in the right direction for information and to guide them as to,
best action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, welcome to Insights as a Service, a special low energy episode today because I've been in the country for about 12 hours, having flown for about 25 before that. So Nick, no pressure, but it's basically over to you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, cool. So I haven't really even spoken to you since getting back in, but hopefully you've got plenty to talk about. What's on the radar?
Yeah, well, I thought today we could talk about why big telcos are losing out to the smaller players in the market. And then some secret sauce selling techniques that perhaps have unlocked that success.
Okay. Yeah, it's the comms. What am I talking about here? The Commerce Commission come out with that report each year about the same time as the telco levy, and they break down. And this is in New Zealand, obviously, and maybe the same thing's true in Australia. We'll find out. But the market share held by these smaller players, those outside the top four, seems to be growing each year. So go on then. What do you reckon the secret sauce is there?
Well, I reckon the secret sauce is you can actually understand your customer and you can actually deliver a hell of a lot better, in terms of support, in terms of marketing efforts, and you're kind of getting de-established from the corporate kind of structure that's imposed upon, marketing, sales, process. And it just gets back to that unique humanized touch point of these smaller players that are seen to be cool and agile and aligning better with different verticals and values. There's telcos out there now that do, environmentally friendly first, and God knows how they make money. But there's a kind of a telco for everyone almost.
Right.
And those are the ones that are nibbling away at the big guys like the Telstras and stuff like that, who have forever seen as just kind of evil corporate, to the market.
That's that really comes back then to people buying from people and, understanding you as much as the other way around as well, because people, people want to actually be able to relate to the person that they're working with, to be able to get in touch with them, to feel like they're aligned behind some common purpose. But you could see that work really well for Vocus back in the day. And then as they got bigger, they lost that personal touch. People like us no longer knew who our account manager was. Aussie Broadband has been a really good example of recent success as well, and now they're a pretty big player too.
Killing it.
And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? Is you start off as a smaller player with this real, hey, I've got maybe 100 or so accounts. I know each of them really well. I have the time and mental space to really get to know them, understand them, how the challenges their businesses are facing, and what I can do to assist with those problems. But then as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, and maybe some of those people get promoted, some of them leave, those elements drop off. So I guess for the bigger players, the challenge is how do you keep that secret sauce as you scale?
Yeah, and I think part of that comes into usual talent retention and ensuring that you've got really good training processes, and that that all ties back into company culture. The more people you have, the harder it is to maintain that kind of culture that perhaps led to that early success. I think, every kind of new company that starts up perhaps flies a little bit more free and loose, and then they start to tighten the belt a bit and become more proper and official corporate. And, people naturally tend to realign themselves to that as well because they don't want to get in trouble, do crazy things. And so as you have that come in, you got to keep it free for them to be able to do that account management in that kind of early day style. And then that allows you to go out there, meet with those customers, have those kind of really deep and meaningful relations with them, and kind of unpack the customer, and then get those insights out of them to feed back into your perhaps bigger team, your more corporate team, or your more well-established marketing teams, and take those insights, those research analytics, sentiment analysis, and all those kind of data points you can track, and then turn that around to deliver a really good service to the customer. And that, I think, helps.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what we're talking about here too is the transactional stuff, right? Like it's anything that's like click to buy. I mean,
you can't put an emotive element around it.
Not really, no. So you're looking at complex problems that have maybe a range of opportunities in terms of how they can be addressed. But then you've got, okay, so you want people to be able to deal with people, but you also want as much as possible to be able to introduce systems, portals, insights that are automated, pushed out, or at the very least reactively available. So I guess it's finding that balance as you scale between pushing people, or at least giving people that access without almost pushing them away to that. It's finding a balance between it's there if you need it, but also I'm available for
if you want it.
Yeah.
I think a classic case of that yesterday is, there's a lot of stuff that gets done by sales support in our team, and there was a thing yesterday where customer really needed to get in touch with me because he had some pressing questions. Literally took the call sitting on the tarmac at the airport, and then whilst I was up in the air, thankfully in-flight Wi-Fi, it's amazing. Ended up taking some text from another customer and dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. Again, just being available for those customers when they needed. Goes well above and beyond kind of what I think a lot of companies do, and that's why people like working with companies like Lightwire. It's because we're available, we're there. There's touch points across the business. There's automation. There's multiple people that do a lot of things, but when it matters, you can reach the people that you need to. And that's secret sauce stuff.
So, but we're in the same boat as all the other telcos that have done well by doing similar things, because it's not, it's not possible to replicate. It's hard to scale. And so we're growing every year. We've got the same issue that, like I said, Vocus, Aussie Broadband. I'm thinking maybe some New Zealand examples here would be, Cordia's probably got the same challenge as they get bigger. There'd be other examples that escape my jet lagged head right now. But I think as you scale, then the trick to ensure that your account management team can keep giving the kind of experience that differentiates your brand would be giving your sales team support. So support type roles coming in that say, look, you shouldn't be doing the basic, admin stuff, creating contracts, that kind of thing. There should be people to help you, but also if you have to do it regularly, it should be automated. So there's that. And then also giving your end users access to the tools that make it much easier for your salespeople to point people in the right direction for information and to guide them as to,
next best action.
Yeah, exactly. Did I miss anything out in that list?
I think the other thing that has to be there is there's a standards enforcement, right? It's making sure that corners aren't getting cut, and you're still ticking the boxes for this is how this process works. You want this is the information that needs to be it. Because I think one of the quickest things that happens as you try and grow and scale out a team is shortcuts get taken. Sales, I think, is a general industry term, have the reputation of pump and dump, or just get the contract signed, dump it to another team, let them deal with actually working out what the hell's going on. And that's kind of the crap that I hate. Well, I personally hate, and I'm sure a lot of people hate. The customers tend to hate as well, because it's like they've explained it to you, but you haven't articulated that to someone else because you're too busy. So it's about tying all those loose ends around and ensuring that every piece of information is captured during that process as well, regardless of whether that's an automated system, back-end support, the account manager, whoever.
Yeah. I was just thinking, we've talked about the point I'm about to make before on the podcast, which is when you start as a smaller entity, as the owner or one of the owners or a key manager, a lot of what makes a business special is in that person's head and in the relationships they hold. And that's never going to scale, right? Like you're going to end up letting people down, or just not allow the business to take opportunities it could have otherwise had. So I guess the other secret sauce in enabling smaller players to continue to grow without decreasing the level of service is by ensuring that you get those standard operating procedures, those processes, those other roles created with clear definitions of success, and again that automation and repeatability.
And reporting on it. So, as you grow and scale a team, it's hard to know why that relationship exists. But if you can track that, if you can report on that, so if you can pull up a list of your top 50 customers that are VIPs, and they're not VIPs because they're your largest billing accounts or something like that. They might be a mixture of like really good relationship, family friend, done business with them, having a relationship over there, raising their fans. Yeah. And if you can actually take and capture all that and then report based on that to go, when was the last time we were talking to these people? Because they're instrumental to our business. That's another amazing thing that you have to do. And as any kind of small business that wants to scale, you need to keep that kind of core customers really happy. So, I think if you can capture it, if you can report on it, if you can share that as you grow and scale and different people might take over the day-to-day management of those accounts, it's going to be instrumental to your growth success. Yeah.
And the call cycle element there. So if people are used to having contact made on a regular basis, so whether that's quarterly or 6 monthly or whatever, monthly, depending on the size, you're able to set SLAs and things like Salesforce around that, right? So you can make sure that as you grow, those accounts aren't getting neglected. So it's just understanding, what your business rules are around those touch points. And also, for me, there's just some of those like, what's the word I'm looking for here? The, go away phone. Those sort of health, just really basic. There's a very obvious word I'm missing here. It's like it's not sanity. It's when you just do a certain set of tasks each time you catch up with a client to make sure that that account is as healthy as it could be. So, for example, the people we've got in file, do they still work for you? Are there people that need access to our systems that that aren't currently on the list? Have being aware of stock adoption within that business, the depth of access to key people within that business, just all those kind of things. And you're just checking those each time you go to talk to them.
Health metrics checklist, basically.
Yeah. There's definitely a word I'm missing there, and it's doing my head in. But again, broken brain, so that's my excuse. But yeah, I think there's a number of reasons why smaller players are make for good partners, but there's also an increasing level of difficulty in maintaining those same factors as you scale. So those are probably some of the key ones to tick off.
Yeah, but I also think at the same time, as you grow and you get bigger as well, some of those brands will attract bigger companies, more like-minded companies that like to operate in that same kind of commercial space. So they may lose some of the smaller, easy accounts to other providers, but they might still be maintaining that profitability through retaining enterprise-sized customers. So, it's not all bad to say smaller telcos are eating away at the bigger telcos, because they might be choosing to take a different avenue, refocus their businesses and core product sets.
Yeah, I think if you're a smaller player, you have to realize where you can add value, and it's not by doing the transactional stuff, as we said before. So you've got to be solving a unique problem or an existing problem in a unique way. It's the old saying, no one ever got fired for picking IBM, or you could put Telstra in there or Spark or whatever. But there are some people who are going to be perceive a smaller brand as a risk, and they're going to be risk averse. Yep. There are the customers who are going to be very price driven, and they're going to go, look, there's nothing complex about what I need. Just give me XYZ at bugger all cost. And then there's the others where they go, look, we've got a unique set of problems. We are looking for an engaged partner that comes to us with a compelling way of solving this. And I guess if you're focused on that, you understand how you're winning your business. And that's the other part. Why are you winning your business? Yeah. What are the key things that you have to keep doing if you're going to scale using the same model? So I guess that comes back then to research, focus groups, which happens to be in our flywheel. That research element to understand what problems your customers are looking for you to solve, and then building the systems, processes, and products to deliver on that. Blah blah blah. But ranting now, absolutely ranting.
You take it back as well, though, to why are you losing business? Because a lot of people, and I know this is kind of small MSP territory. They do a lot of like proposals and stuff like that, and then it's like, no, I went with someone else. And then they go, oh, fine. On to the next thing. I'm too busy.
Mm.
Why'd you lose it? Like, go
Yeah.
ask the question, do a debrief, like work out what's actually gone wrong here. Was it a relationship? Was it pricing? Did they not like one element? So a lot of the times everyone just seems to be too busy these days to actually ask those tough questions or go, yeah, I'll give you this, but if we don't get it, then I want, feedback on it. And some people put that into RFP processes, and others just full blanket ghost you. And you've got to value your time, I think, to a certain extent, but you need to look at those metrics and kind of apply that to your business processes and work out, do we continue to go after these opportunities? Don't we?
Yeah. I think it's when you've got a partner-based model, I think that gets easier. So when you've got partners that are referring business to you and they go, hey, we've got this opportunity, then you don't get that opportunity. It's much easier to go back to your partner who's like an intermediary to go, what were you hearing from them? Why did they choose to go with something else? But when it's more direct and they don't feel like they've got an ongoing reason to sort of give you a heads up as to why they chose something else, you're like, man.
It's definitely a lot tougher, but I think, at the same time, it's like they've either approached your business and asked you to put pricing together. So there's clearly some value alignment there. So I think it wouldn't be too far out of the box to ask for that information. And I think, New Zealand's in particular, is a particularly small country where a lot of people know everyone, 2 degrees separation, all that good stuff. So, you can probably side channel it if you really wanted to find out. It doesn't have to be a formal conversation.
Yeah, it's true. Can I buy you coffee and figure out what we could do differently next time.
And then it's also your opportunity to go and then go, didn't say this or put in this proposal, but you should probably go look at that as well. And then you might just set yourself up for the next, another piece of off the side work or something like that, or a way to just wiggle yourself back in there and wait for that contract to come up for renewal.
Fair.
So,
yeah, there's always a next time. Yeah. That's the thing. There's always cases. I've come across a number of cases, right, where it's just like, don't burn bridges. Like when people don't get deals and they get the shits and they just go, you wasted my time where you were just price, shopping or whatever. It's like, no, don't ever do that. Just there's always a next time. People change jobs eventually as well. And, they'll be, take it as a learning opportunity, look to engage, ultimately if you are looking to act in someone's best interest, eventually that'll pay off.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Hey, something so this is my Explanabrag moment. So patent pending on that term. Not actually, I stole it off Community. But the great series. If you haven't watched it, by the way, Community. Do you ever get into that?
Never got into it.
Get into it. It's good. Hopefully they make a movie. 6 seasons in a movie. Anyway, so the Explanabrag, yes, that's where I got to, going down a path there. But so just got back from France and Dublin, in Ireland yesterday. Dublin's in Ireland, didn't know if you knew that, so just words.
Good with geography.
Thank you. But big difference in France is that they all start work about 10 a.m. and work through much later in the night, and they have something called oh man, you'll be better at me than this, but pause déj, I think, which is like a big pause for lunch.
Yeah, the lunch is like an hour lunch.
Yeah, which is crazy, and no meetings are accepted during that time. Would that be better, do you think?
Well, I'll put my New Zealand hat on and then go, don't all Australians start at 10 a.m.?
Technically, yes. Technically, yes.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it's quite cool though. And I think the Spanish do something a little bit similar with the siesta.
But I was thinking about it. If you woke up each day and you had, like, say, you woke up at 6 and then you started work at 10, you'd have 4 hours every morning to just do whatever.
Yeah, it's a long time though, and I think it's got to tie in with your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it's got to be built around it, because I try and start a little bit later in the day to work with the Aussie guys, and then I just find myself, I actually just start work early because I'm just like, oh, I've done the chores, been to the gym, because I like to do that. I like to do that absolutely first thing in the morning. I've got enough caffeine in there to probably kill a small animal, and I'm just ready to go and launch into it, and so I do.
Yep.
I think there's probably a lot of cultures like that, but again, if you lived probably quite in a maybe quite metro area, you could go out for a nice coffee. You could have probably quite a good routine to start your day, do some reading, do some kind of professional development, all that kind of
just stay in bed,
healthy stuff, sleep in, get all your 8 hours.
But so for me, like I like a pensioner. I have dinner at 5 p.m. most days, or maybe 5:30. And there was
there's a mash and a couple of veg.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, that's it. And then bed at 7. Not actually 9, but there was like these 5-year-old kids out in the streets at 9, 10 o'clock at night having dinner, and I'm like, when do they sleep, and how does that? But I guess the thing is, when you just take your whole day and shift it forward 3 or 4 hours, it makes sense. And they don't start school till like 9 or 10, I guess. So I don't know, but it's struck me that we get into these little habits based around our culture. We typically 8:30 to 5. They push it all back a few hours. I work more like 6:30 till 3. But it's a choice. It's all a choice. You can completely change it up. The only difference here is that all restaurants would be shut by 9, or the kitchen would be closed by 10 for sure.
Well, I was in Wellington a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to get a coffee early in the morning. There's like nothing open before 7 a.m., which is insane.
That's crazy for coffee. That's like peak coffee time.
That's peak coffee time. And then I was out for a walk this morning at, I think it was 5:15, and I could buy a coffee. And I was like, they just get it. They get it here.
Yeah.
And it's strange. And I always thought that this was one of the other weird things about New Zealand is a lot of like retail stores shut at like 5:30.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but
that's probably
I'm working
like peak
then.
Foot traffic. Like, how many times have I like gone, oh shit, I didn't buy that present at lunchtime because I got dragged into a meeting.
Yeah.
Run out and go buy something like shop's closed.
Yeah.
Some bleeping there for Remain,
Yeah.
but likes that kind of stuff. And I just think it's got to be a line between business culture and lifestyle culture to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's even like banks, right? Like there's a couple of banks now that will open a little bit on a Saturday for a few hours, but it's like some branches some of the time.
Yeah.
But there are so many businesses that just aren't aligning their practices with what consumers of their services actually need.
Want and need,
yeah. Which is really weird. But I guess if they all act that way, then no one's, differentiating, and they can all just have the same old behavior.
Yeah. But the lunch thing also interests me though, because I do think it's a good way of bringing people together and kind of getting to know people at a more intimate level, or just having that break in the middle of the day for you to actually properly disconnect. Because I think part of culture these days, in general, not necessarily our company culture, is that you do the old el disco, I call it, which is
great term.
Yeah, you take your lunch back to your desk and keep working while you eat.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite common. But if you're saying no meetings, it's an hour long, everyone goes out and does it at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that's quite cool, and you go see friends and catch up and have some kind of informal meetings over lunch.
Yeah.
I think that's quite cool.
That'd be a great idea. I do think though that if I took a break during the day to eat a proper meal, I would
need a nap afterwards.
I would be so tired. Yeah. I would just, so there is that side to it. But I think that in concept, the fact that, a whole country is basically like, I will not book a meeting with you between, I guess it must be sort of like 1 and 2:30, something like that. Yeah. And everyone's aligned on that.
But also, how do they rank on ease of doing business with?
I don't know.
As a foreigner trying to potentially on a way different time zone, what is the time zone difference between Australia and?
I think it's like basically 2 hours ahead, but a day behind,
hours?
something like that. It's like
9 behind.
Oh, there you go, miles off. I know when I was calling the kids, it was like 10 a.m. In France was something like 7 p.m. in Australia, something like that.
Yeah. So they can get quite awkward for like, here's my set window and I'm going to take out a whole another hour of that.
Yeah. There was a survey, again, probably a French survey, saying that the French are the most productive in Europe in terms of the workforce. So they don't work the most hours. They're limited in theory to 35 a week, but then they can work more.
No Tesla factories there.
Sorry?
No Tesla factories.
No Tesla factories there. No. But yeah, they by the time they have, apparently they're very productive, supposedly, but I'm not sure about that. So Remain was also making the point that everything there is shut on Sunday, which comes back to our point about maybe having business practices that align with consumer needs. But yeah, it was weird for me being there. It's like, oh, it's Sunday. There is literally nothing open, but I've got a day on a weekend to use. What a waste. And then you were saying to me just then that, you can still buy online on a Sunday. So
yeah. So, what's the difference? And I think it comes down to a bit of employment law, but I also said that, it's around like legislative days of which you can and can't open your business. And I think, there's no place in modern day business that should exist. Like if someone doesn't want to open their business from a personal reason or a religious reason or something like that, that should be down to the business owner. And then they can align their consumers to that. One of the things that just always like blew my mind is when we're doing renovations on the house, so we've done a couple of times, is there's a curtain and carpet shop in my town, and it's never open on the weekend.
Weird.
I don't have time to get there between business hours, Monday to Friday, to go and pick up different colors of curtains and stuff like that. Like it's just nuts that they weren't open. And I think they also do like the we'll come to your home type stuff. But
okay. I mean, I guess it's that thing, right? It's like there's a balancing act there. They obviously have a lifestyle as business owners that they like. Good luck to them. But there's an offset in terms of the business you can get.
Yeah. And I was like, there's, particularly for your blue collar worker, like it's tough for them to get out during business hours. They don't have as much flexibility as perhaps an office worker who can work from home and then duck down to the shop. It's hard to do that for some roles.
Two other things from my trip. One is the French was telling me some of them were saying how much they earn. It seems on a nominal basis, the salaries there are quite a bit lower, but the cost of living isn't necessarily lower in general, but the cost of rent is. So, what they pay in a month, some of the people were telling me, albeit often for small apartments, were as much as you'd pay here a week for an apartment. So
there's quite a different makeup.
Yeah. So that's one of the key offsets, I think, is there's not the same, just housing cost. Although, man, some of the price of some of the apartments in Paris I saw in some of the real estate agents there is eye-watering, but that's okay. And the other thing is Irish people are all good at singing and can all play guitar and have a great party.
Nice. I am not good at singing. I don't play the guitar, so perhaps I should not visit there anytime soon.
They're good to watch though. They're good crack. They're fun. I had a question too. Actually, we've talked heaps about the Great Resignation in past episodes. Do you think that ended up being a thing?
No, I don't think it did. I think a lot of people, particularly in the New Zealand market, there's a lot of people that moved around for pay rates and things like that, but I don't think it had quite the impact that we saw. I think there's been, in New Zealand, more people that have jumped across to Australia since it's more open.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's partially been driven by New Zealand living in this like under a rock culture.
Yeah. Well, didn't we saw that again with Chorus saying about how a lot of their contractors, right, or their contractors' employees once skilled had jumped over.
Yeah. And it's hilarious. Yesterday, like a bunch of Kiwis got off the flight, right? And then the first thing they see is one woman without a mask on. They're like, do we not have to wear a mask? And then she's like, no, like,
right.
Where have you been for the last 5 months? And just like basically the whole plane is just like demasking as they come off, like they've suddenly like been given this freedom that they've never had before. It's a really weird moment.
So just touching on that, so mask rules while traveling, no mask at all anywhere in Europe, no mask at all worn by anyone on the plane. I flew Aer Lingus between Marseille and Dublin and Paris, and not a single mask at the airport of the planes. But then Singapore Airlines from Paris to Singapore, Brisbane, masks all the way. And then Australian airports don't have to wear it. Parisian airport didn't have to wear it. So it's all over the place still. It really is a jurisdictional or company by company policy.
Yeah. New Zealand is still masks in airports.
Okay.
Masks, I think on masks on public transport, definitely masks on planes, except for we'll feed everyone at the same time, so take them all off.
Okay.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Where were we at anyway before we go into that? We were saying...
weird side pass there.
Oh, Great Resignation. Yeah.
So I don't think it's really happened. I think there's been a lot of people out there that have gone, is the grass green on the other side? Maybe, maybe not. Am I too busy to look for a job during the day? Potentially. Do I have time to interview during the day? Maybe not. There's definitely a bit of that. And I think there's still that risk of going, is the company that you might want to go to work for, are they financially viable? Are they stable? Am I just seeing the cool hip marketing elements? Like, what's it actually like there? And you never know. You never really know until you work there for 6 months or so. Kind of all the sweet rosiness is worn off a little bit. But so I don't think it has really evolved to the thousands and thousands of people quitting. And in general, though, it's so hard to hire someone decent. Like there's a genuine labor shortage. So
in skilled roles, in fact, in all roles. And that was another thing, just traveling over there, even a lady in Dublin pharmacy was very quick to tell me that no one wants to work over there because they can get pretty good money doing nothing, and there's unskilled staff are hard to get.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I'm sure there's an element of I'm sure there's a very valid counter argument to that, but generally, there was still a lot of cafes going, sorry, we're understaffed.
Yep.
All the things that you see, in New Zealand and Australia is global, but the people seem very aware in my experience recently that first in, first out, typically the macro environment is pretty grim. So there's every chance that people will be looking to cut jobs, and in that case, that rule is pretty relevant. And there have been some surveys coming out recently, and again, I should be better prepared and have the exact surveys ready to be cited, but let's just assume that I'm right and these do exist, that there's a lot of people who have left roles coming back to the same companies in similar or the same role within 6 months. So they tried it, they went elsewhere, they came back for security and because the grass wasn't actually greener.
And we touched on kind of that side hustle role thing in the previous podcast there, but I think a lot of people have gone, well, now's the time, I'll try it. Shit, it didn't turn out to plan. I didn't become a billionaire in 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to my day job because running a company is tough.
Well, I suppose with the Great Resignation, there's people are either going to another job or they're just taking a break. If they're taking a break at the moment, they're bloody brave because inflation's going through the roof and everyone's got a lot more dollars going out the door. The alternative being,
so yeah, you've either got to go out there and absolutely nail it within 6 months and kill it, or move to a job that's going to give you a 20, maybe 20s around more than a 7 to 9% pay increase to offset your inflation. So without that, you kind of just want to stay put and play it safe a little bit, and kind of try and rein in your costs and the 9 Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and all those good subscriptions that you have.
Yeah. So I don't think, in my experience anyway, the Great Resignation hasn't really taken shape, but
it could still happen, I think. But I think only under certain conditions, being inflation comes down, cost of living comes down, and then that will start to free up capital for people to experiment, play around, and perhaps be more willing to take on risk.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's starting to be particularly prevalent in New Zealand is negative equity in property. And when you've got that, the bank's not going to lend you jack shit. So, you really want to be as stable as possible because, again, what's another negative? How long have you been in your job? 2 months.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually really true. That's a good point. But there's conflicting pressures here, right? There's a lot of articles, and I think it's probably true for most people. The easiest way to take a significant step forward in your earnings is to go to a different role. It could be in the same company, to be fair. So that's one. And in a high inflation period, the cost of everything going up, that will appeal to some people. But in a troubled macroeconomic environment, every role is less certain to a certain degree, and certainly new roles and people newly into existing roles. So there's a risk there as well. And your point there I think is a good one. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, be interested to hear if anyone's actually got any, nice data to say, shut up guys, you don't know what you're talking about. The mass resignation totally happened and perhaps it's still happening.
And perhaps we just haven't seen it because we've got great company culture.
Yay, look at us go. We're the best. All right. Well, on that up ourselves note,
End on a high.
End on a high. We're the best. See you later. That probably is actually a good place to leave it. So unless you've got something else you want to talk about?
No, that's good.
All right, cool. All right, we're the best. See you next week. Thanks for listening.